Oh, I'm sorry. I like to share interesting facts with my wife.
Oh, your wife? You don't own her.
I'm his property.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Bo and Andrew didn't go to college because that's just the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast. This is a podcast where one person dumps their special interest, info dump knowledge on the rest of their friends that are whoever's there during the podcast. That's how it goes. Yep. That's how podcasts are. Okay.
Much better.
Great. Andrew, say hello.
Hello, this is take 2 of the intro because Ash fucked up the first one.
They stopped recording. It's not my fault. Bo, say hello.
Guess whose fault it was?
Wow, it wasn't Bo's fault for once.
It was my fault.
Wow.
It was my fault.
I think that's the first Ash blunder. Ash has never done this before.
And now I won't ever let her live it down because that's what you guys do to me. You got to bring it up every fucking waking moment of
To
my
be
life.
fair,
Text message.
the only person that we've lost an complete episode was because of you.
Okay, and what about? Okay, I'm glad you said a complete episode because don't forget that half Justin debacle.
Oh yeah, the half Justin episode.
Justin can't be faulted though because Justin's not a full-time host.
Yeah. Justin gets a lot of leeway. It's
Anyway.
Hi, Justin.
If It Up Podcast. This is a podcast where we get together. We talk about history. We talk about things that we learned. We talk about things that we like. Today, we have Zachary taking us through a very interesting story from history.
Thank you. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm telling a story about an interesting person from history.
Cool.
And let's get started. Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to do something here. I'm trying to tell a story and be dramatic about it. Just kidding. We're going to do...
I wish we could do a third intro,
of,
honestly, but, it's fine.
it's fine. It's fine.
Quick, someone
It's
fuck up the
fine.
recording.
Oh,
do it.
Oh God, I hit the button.
Oh, his
my
webcam
God.
is recording instead of his
no.
microphone. That's crazy.
Oh,
My
Jeez.
computer
Oh, no.
blew up.
My body is so bad right now.
Oh, he's having an
Okay,
anaphylactic
that's great.
shock.
Okay, so I'm going to tell the story of a lady from
Ooh.
history. Her name is Olga of Kiev. And buddy, you are not prepared for how hard this story is going to go. To the point where I would say that this is probably the long fabled return of the Super Hard Dude series, except this is just going to be one person. And
Super hard lady dude.
sometimes super hard. Yeah, sometimes dudes can be ladies. Sometimes super hard dudes can be ladies. Ladies can be super hard too. What the fuck am I saying? It's
I have
fine.
no idea. Most of us are from California. Dude is a general gender neutral term.
Yeah, it's the
Mhm.
Californian dude.
I call my mom dude.
Yeah, dude.
So this is a story that takes place in the 900s in Central Eastern Europe. We'll talk about it just to set the scene a little bit. And the story, as it comes, mostly comes from a chronicle that was compiled in the 1100s from a ton of different sources. So some of it's kind of apocryphal, but the broad strokes are true. Don't worry too much about it. We'll talk more about it at the end.
Anything
Just
written
get
that
along
long
for the
ago.
ride here.
You gotta take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, there's a whole
It's
telephone game thing. It's like that one time where you got fact checked on the A Nasir episode, I think it was.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of completely different, but
that
it's
was
fine.
just
Don't
you
worry
doing
about it.
bad research. It's fine.
That was just me doing bad research. Olga, we don't know what year she was born. We don't know very much about her life in general, except that she was about 15 years old when she was married to Prince Igor of Kiev, sometime in the first quarter of the 900s.
Hold on. Igor and Olga.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of names like that. Don't worry
What
too
a
much about it.
Great duo.
We've also got an Oleg in the backstory
Oh my
here.
God, that's like it's mashing their two names together.
So
Oh yeah, Olga and Igor. What would their couple ship name be? Olgor.
Olgor. Iga.
So the Olgor wedding was sometime in the first quarter of the 900s, and she was about 15 years old.
Wow.
Igor was the son of Rurik, who was a big deal leader of the Kievan Rus. This was the first Slavic state, and along with the guy named Oleg, was responsible for conquering and subjugating a ton of the local tribal groups in the area. So this is like Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Western Russia. What is now that? At the time, this is basically a bunch of Slavic tribes, a bunch of Finns, and the Vikings, like Norse groups, who are kind of coming in and disrupting things. And the as far as I can figure, the Kievan Rus the Rus are descended from Swedish Vikings.
They are from Sweden.
But what the important thing is that Rurik and Oleg founded Kievan Rus, which is the first big state in the area. Rurik died shortly, not too long after, when Igor was young, and so he passed on leadership of Kievan Rus to Oleg, who by all accounts was a pretty badass guy. His life is very mythical. He's like all of his kind of great deeds sound very legendary. There's all of this kind of talk about how he had the gift of prophecy and stuff like that. He had the sight.
Okay.
Wish I had
which
the
is cool and all, but no one has ever had that for real, though.
Yeah. But the story of how
Except for
Oleg died
Bo.
is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, I'm just going to take I couldn't figure out how to summarize this any better. So I'm just reading this from Wikipedia.
Hit me with it.
Oleg is known as the prophet, an epithet alluding to the sacred meaning of his Norse name, priest. According to the legend, romanticized by Alexander Pushkin in his ballad, The Song of the Wise Oleg, it was prophesied by the pagan priests that Oleg would take death from his stallion. To defy the prophecies, Oleg sent the horse away. Many years later, he asked where his horse was and was told it had died. He asked to see the remains and was taken to the place where the bones lay. When he touched the horse's skull with his boot, a snake slithered from the skull and bit him. Oleg died, thus fulfilling the prophecy.
No way.
That's hardcore,
So
man.
this is fun. Yeah,
Wow.
it's great.
Surprise, bitch. Yeah.
You thought you were going to get killed by a horse, but actually there's a snake in your horse's skull. This is very
And you gave up your horse for
classical
nothing. Haha,
comeuppance
dummy.
kind
What
of
was the
thing.
horse's name?
Yeah.
Was it Ivan?
Sure. Let's say that. His
Igor?
horse's name was Bucephalus.
Bucephalus.
Callback.
You tried to thwart the prophecy, but you got anyway.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
What was the snake's name?
I don't think the
Steve?
snake had a name.
I call
Yeah,
it
let's call
Bitey.
the snake Steve.
I'll
We'll
let that
name
one
the
bite.
snake. We'll name the snake, even though the snake will never come back. So anyway, long story short, despite the fact that Olga and Igor were married when Olga was 15, they this is not like a child bride situation where he's immediately impregnating this 15-year-old. Instead, he spent most of his marriage away on campaigns.
Why did you make that noise?
I just hated the way he said that. I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were mad that he wasn't
Oh,
impregnating her.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
why are you so pro child brides? That's fucking gross.
Yeah, I hated it. It's just oh, hey, impregnating this 15-year-old. Just that sentence alone just made me, ugh.
Yeah, we don't support impregnating 15-year-olds on this podcast.
You didn't have to say that, but you did say that.
I feel like maybe we did have to say it because Bo's sound was a little bit
It was-
ambiguous.
A little bit.
No, don't turn this on me. I hated it. And that has to be said that I hated it. Okay.
Do you know how old Igor was?
15.
I don't know how old Igor was. A lot of the kind of birth and death days for these
Oh,
people
yeah.
are not. Well, the death we know that Oleg died in 912, for example, and then Igor took on the role of prince shortly after that. And
Wait,
then,
say Oleg died in 912?
yeah, Oleg died in 912, and then Igor, I think, was already prince when he got married to Olga. I do not know how old he was, but I guess he was old enough to.
Wait, I
become
thought
the
his
prince.
dad's name was Rudrick.
Yeah, his name
Yeah.
started with an R.
So Rurik was his
Rurik.
dad. And Rurik was the first king
Okay,
of Kievan.
I need to make a family
prince.
tree here in Vizio. I need to be able to keep up with this.
Oleg was his relative who apparently there's a great deal of historical controversy over how exactly Rurik and Oleg were related, but they were related. So Rurik died, but Igor was too young to become the prince. So Oleg was his successor. Then Oleg dies. Igor's finally old enough to become
Gotcha.
the prince.
Okay.
So he becomes the prince.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, got it.
This is all backstory that doesn't really matter.
You always do this
Because-
to us.
That's right. You
Well,
give
you're
us
the
a
ones who are
lot.
asking questions. So, long story short, Igor spends most of his marriage to Olga away on campaigns. He's skirmishing over borders with the Byzantine Empire. He is maintaining and expanding the territory of Kievan Rus. And there is kind of this tradition in the region where the rulers go to the people who they've conquered or the people who are within their territory, and they personally get tribute from them, like furs, money, goods, various stuff like that. This is
Whatever
what
you
they
got.
pay for, like taxation to the rulers. And like a big part of it is that the rulers go and collect that personally. This will come back later.
Mm.
And so for a long time, Olga did whatever the Kievan Rus princesses do while Igor is off fighting. And then around 942, they had their son, whose name was Sviatoslav.
Wow, that's a $10 name.
Sviata.
Yeah,
Wow.
Sviatoslav.
Sviatoslav.
Sviatoslav. I don't know what it means. Feel free to look it up while I'm talking. So while Igor was off campaigning and doing stuff and collecting tribute from certain tribes, other tribes might fall through the cracks. And one of these was the Derevlians. Derevlian, they're lived in forests. That's where their name comes from. So I was looking up the etymology of Derevlians, but I didn't look up the etymology of Sviatoslav. So that's a personal failing for me. I'll take the lashes. But Derevlians, they lived in the forest. That's where the name comes from. Versus people who lived in the fields, which is, I don't remember the exact word for it, but that's where the word for Poland comes from. So that's fun.
The name
So those are the
Sviatoslav is a Slavic name that means one who worships the light or one who worships the holy.
Great. I love that. That's fun. So the Derevlians, they were initially hostile to the Kievan Rus back in the day, but they allied with them to fight off the Byzantine Empire with the conditions that they send tribute to Kievan Rus. But they stopped sending tribute in 912 after Oleg died. And when Igor finally came back from his campaigns, it was like, hey, these guys haven't sent tribute in forever. I'm going to go collect it. So he head to their capital of Iskorostan to collect it in about 945. The Derevlians, they see Igor coming in and they're like, dude, it's been 30 years since the last time we sent tribute. And now you're coming to collect the tribute?
Hey guys, just got back from my tour across the
sea,
Kievan
the
Rus
sea,
territory.
the
I don't
sea,
know
the
if there's
sea.
a better name than that.
Yeah, the Baltic Sea, doing stuff in there.
I was doing stuff, but now I'm back. Give me all your shit. Thanks.
Yeah. They gave him like a little payment of something or other to satisfy him. But on the way back, he was like, actually, no, this isn't enough. This isn't 30 years worth of tribute. And so he and his men turned around and went back to Iskorostan to get more. Then the Derevlians saw him coming back and they were like, that's fucked up. Why is he coming back? So they ambushed him and captured him. Now, chump or dump here. How did they kill him? We have A, ripped apart by birch trees.
What?
B, a classic pit of crocodiles. Or C, they gave him a Viking funeral, but he was still alive.
How does one get ripped apart by birch trees?
Use your imagination.
I'm trying. I'm failing. Viking funeral sounds the coolest. I want to say that.
Okay, yeah. But what do you think?
Viking funeral because I'm a sheep.
Okay. Ash, what do you think?
I know that the answer is ripped apart by birch trees.
He was ripped apart by birch trees.
What? How? What? Okay,
so here's what they did.
Two things. One, what? Two, stop telling each other answers. I swear to God.
We
had
live in
this
the same
conversation
house and we
so
talk
many
to each
times.
other every day. We do
You need to
research
stop.
less than 3 feet away from each other. It's going to happen.
You need to
gonna
just
happen.
put in earplugs or something. Does Zach just
It's
yell it
fine.
out loud when he's doing the research? He's like, "Oh
I mean,
my God, I can't believe this happened." And you're
sometimes
just, like, in
I
the
do
corner
that
of the
too.
room, like,
I say,
Yeah.
I know
It's
I
hard
should
not
wait
to.
for the podcast, but I'm not gonna because this
It's
is so
hard not
interesting.
to. Oh, I'm sorry. I like to share interesting facts with my wife.
"Now your wife, you don't own her."
God, you own her. God.
I'm his property.
What they did was they tied each of his legs to a bent birch tree.
Bend a birch tree, tie his arms and legs to it.
Yeah, well, just the legs from the
Oh.
story. They tied.
Oh.
And then they released the trees. And when the trees straightened up, they pulled them in half.
Okay.
That is
Crotch,
so fucked
crotch
up.
first.
How
That
do you
hurts.
even
Oh.
think to do that, to be honest?
I don't know, but it's fucked up.
Hey, I heard about this thing called drawing and quartering, but we don't have any horses. How could we get that same effect just with the resources that we have here?
You know what? That's very carbon neutral of them, and I'm into it.
Yeah,
That is
I
fucked
imagine
up,
there's
man.
probably a lot of force too, like a birch tree
Imagine
straightening up.
the area of effect on that one.
Yeah,
I wonder how quick it happened. I assume it didn't
has to
happen
be fast.
immediately. It had to
it
take time.
no, it's immediate.
yeah. It's definitely like a forceful
like
situation.
they bend a tree down. They bend two
Do they
trees
use
down.
other trees to bend the other trees?
They probably use ropes, I would imagine. And then let go.
Yeah, like a catapult attached to each of
Reverse
his legs.
catapult.
Reverse. Double catapult.
Ugh, gnarly.
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah. So you got pulled apart by birch trees. And I think that the birch trees is a very fun kind of like Nordic detail to it. You know, when I think of this,
I love
like,
birch
Slavic,
trees, and now every time I see one, I'm gonna think, that's what they used to rip that man apart.
Yeah. It's just like, I could pull somebody apart with that.
Oh, that's a good one for pulling.
I imagine this probably also was like serendipitous to whatever time of year it must have been too. You know, the tree would have had to have been wet
Yeah,
for it to be bendy, right?
totally.
I don't know. I don't know enough about trees. I'm not a arborist. This left Olga a widow, and Sviatoslav, the next prince of Kievan Rus, but he's 3 years old at this time. Little man's was too young to rule, so Olga became regent.
Nice. We know from previous things in this podcast, from previous episodes of this podcast, baby kings rarely lead to good things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Olga, mourning her husband, figuring out how to rule, probably pretty decent at it. Like, I'm sure that she was probably doing a fair amount of ruling in Igor's stead while he was off doing his campaigns and such. I don't entirely know how the politics of the region worked, but she's now officially the first female ruler of Kievan Rus, which is great.
Fuck yeah.
Good for her. Shortly after this, a retinue
Because her husband was a
of-
greedy bastard.
Yeah. Did she have any birch trees around her house?
Probably. It's Ukraine.
Oh, no.
It's lousy with birch trees. This is all happening in Kiev, by the way, which is the same city that still exists in Ukraine. Obviously, it's much smaller and differenter because
It has buildings.
Because it's 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So shortly after, a retinue of 20 Drevlian ambassadors arrived in Kiev in a boat. They were all hyped up because they'd managed to ambush and kill Igor. And they're like, yeah, we're fucking hot shit. We killed the prince. So they thought Olga would be an easy mark.
Oh, just a woman alone in her castle, no husband ruler.
And so they came essentially with a proposal for her to marry Prince Mal, who was the leader of the Derevlians, and probably the guy who murdered her husband. Honestly, the nerve of these guys to come to this widow and say, why don't you come and marry the guy who murdered your husband and we can merge our kingdoms.
That's old school stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it is a fucking long time ago.
And so she replied with, quote, your proposal is pleasing to me. Indeed, my husband cannot rise again from the dead. End quote. And told them to come back again the next day. And she would have her people carry them into the city in their boat and honor them.
Carry them in their boat?
In their boat, as in a
Like carry the boat while they're in it?
yeah, like a litter, like carrying on a litter,
Mhm.
or
What do they call those?
palisads?
Yeah,
Like a trailer?
Yeah, you're right on it. Why?
Palanquin.
Palanquin. Got it. Nailed it.
Got it. Yeah, like a palanquin. So they came back the next day, and she met them and had her people go into the river and carry out the boat. And they're carrying out the boat, and they're like, "Yeah, we're being carried around like rulers in a
That's so
palanquin. This is
weird.
fucking cool."
I would be like, our boat can stay in the river.
What
This
was the
is
guy's
just a bunch of ambassadors.
Okay.
For Prince Mal.
Ambassador
Mel.
Johnson.
Prince
Yeah.
Ambassador
Mally,
Johnson.
fabulous he. Coming
So
into
they
the
took
city.
the boat, and then they promptly dropped it into a ditch that they dug the previous day after the Drevlians left. Basically, once they left, Olga was like, I'm not fucking marrying this guy. Dig a ditch, a really big one. And so they dumped the boat into the ditch and then started burying them alive.
God damn.
Nice.
I like that.
There we go.
I like that.
And Olga looked down from the edge of the ditch and asked if they found the honor to their taste. Then they just
Was
fucking
that
covered
good
I
it.
for
imagine one of
you?
them's like, no.
One of them said something about how they're suffering just as much as her husband and they should let them go. And she was probably like, absolutely
He's dead.
fucking not.
Yeah, if
He
You will
got
suffer
torn
until
apart
you
by
are
trees.
no longer breathing.
exactly. You can't be suffering as much as he did because he's currently in half.
Mhm. Yeah. Buried
That's
alive,
badass.
20 ambassadors. This is just the start of Olga's revenge campaign. One thing that really works to her advantage over the coming months is that this is the year 900 and people and messages travel faster than people because you could like send, a messenger or a raven or whatever. I don't know how they sent messages back in the time. They probably didn't
It's
use radio.
fucking
Ravens.
Game of Thrones.
No, they use ravens.
They just yelled really loud.
It's not Game of Thrones.
Send the raven.
But before the Drevlians had like could realize that something bad had happened, she sent a message to Iskarostan and to Prince Mal, and she was like, "Hey, I'm stoked about our upcoming wedding, and I want to meet you, but only if you send, quote, their distinguished men to her in Kiev, so that she may go to their prince with due honor." And so he got the message and was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll send some distinguished men."
Yeah.
To
He was about to
accompany
like
her.
give those guys who showed up like a raise. Like, oh man, those guys did such a good job with that boat.
Well,
And
I
then
think
they
that
didn't.
he probably assumed that the ambassadors were still there, and like she was going to bring them back with her.
Yeah. They
But she
did
also
such a good
wanted
job
these, like,
convincing her.
best
They
guys.
did
Yeah.
a really good job convincing her that she should do this. And now he's going to send the party to safely escort her to him. It's all working perfectly.
So this group of men arrived, and she was like,
What?
Nothing. Go ahead.
"Oh, is that the sound coming from the pit?"
Yeah.
Oh.
So she, when she arrived, she was like, "Hey, you guys just rode all the way here, or you've been traveling. You're gross. I don't want to talk to you while you're gross. Don't see me until you've cleaned up. Luckily, we have a nice bathhouse over there. It's all warmed up for you. Go take a bath in our nice little bathhouse."
Oh no, what is she doing?
And they all went into the bathhouse. And so, what do you think that she did after they all went inside the bathhouse?
Oh God, I don't like. There's so many things that have happened already. I don't know. Snakes.
Snakes would be a cool idea.
Thanks.
They turn on the shower and a bunch of snakes come out.
Thanks.
I would bar the doors and set it on fire.
What a great idea that you have, because that's the same idea that she had.
Yeah.
Oh.
She
I mean, that
barred
makes
the doors
sense.
and set it on fire.
I wonder why
didn't-
Ash knew
yeah,
that answer. Yeah.
Cheating, huh?
Yeah.
Just change the answer a little bit to make sure make sure the teacher doesn't know we're cheating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fuck outta
Burn
here.
down that
Fuck
motherfucking
out.
bathhouse down with all the best men who governed the land of Dereva inside. Burn down.
Why didn't they use the
So-
water inside to put the fire out?
She probably
That's a
didn't
great
actually
question.
put water in it.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's probably not how the bathhouses worked. I don't know how the bathhouses worked, but it's probably not that way. And anyway, the water probably like boiled up or something.
Kill them. Oh my gosh, boiling water in addition to fire to death. Wolf.
Yeah. That's rough. So next, she sent another message to the Derevlians and said that she wanted to have a funeral feast at Igor's tomb once she arrived at Iskarostan. I think it's a little fucked up that they didn't like send Igor's body back or anything. They just made a tomb for him in Iskarostan. It's probably super rude.
Yeah.
It was two separate tombs too, one for the left half of his body and one for the right.
They're like, we found most of him.
Yeah, the rest of him's kind of like when the tree straightened up, it kind of went loose. It's, I don't know, somewhere in Poland now.
Flung it that way a bit, and I think I saw a bird
Yeah.
fly off with something.
I heard that they built the tomb out of birch.
Just for one final insult. So she sent another message that said that, hey, I'm coming, your guys came, we're all coming together. And once I get there, I would like to have a big funeral feast at Igor's tomb once we arrive, and you should get everything ready for that.
And they were like, yeah, totally.
Sick.
Yeah, absolutely. She's like, yeah, I just want to do like mourn my husband one last time before I get remarried,
Yeah.
And so they all got ready and headed on over to Iskarostan. And as soon as they arrived, she went right over to the tomb and wept over her dead husband while everybody got the feast set up. And then they got that party started. I guess they did it a little too quickly before they realized that none of the ambassadors or governors were there with them.
They're coming.
Yeah,
They're coming. Don't worry.
they're coming.
They stopped for some hamburgers.
Oh,
on
we
the way.
sent
Yeah.
we left some behind to watch our kingdom while we were gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, we're merging our kingdoms now, so everything's fine.
They're taking a bath right now.
I mean,
She got her hands together like Mr. Burns. Like,
I was literally doing that.
So,
Excellent.
once the feast got underway and everyone was good and drunk, everyone was having a nice party, Olga gave a look to her soldiers and they turned that bitch into a red wedding type situation.
They fucking red weddinged them.
They
the
red weddinged
Reigns
them.
of Castamere or whatever
Started playing.
Yeah. And they killed everyone
God damn
everyone
you guys.
that they could.
Okay.
They killed 5,000 people, as
Whoa.
the story goes. They killed.
That was
yeah.
one hell of a wedding. It was really a funeral.
It's
they
Yeah,
read
it's a
funeral.
nice
Yeah, it's a
day
double
for,
funeral.
Red wedding.
You thought that it was my funeral for Igor, but it's actually a funeral for 5,000 of your guys.
Call an ambulance.
Jesus.
Call an ambulance.
But not for me.
And then she wipes off the blade with her on her dress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now the jig is up, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, they're all
So now the
dead,
jig
right?
is up.
Well, I guess.
No, not everyone, but
Okay.
enough of them. I assume that probably maybe once they killed 5,000 people, it was like the few people who like were not that drunk started to fight back or something, and they were probably like, okay, let's fucking go. And so once they were, as the story goes, once they were contented with the slaughter, as it says, they returned to Kiev and raised up an army from the...
Are you good with this murder? Because I am.
So they were just like, all right, we killed all the people we could here. Let's go home.
They left.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, so they went back home.
What about
and
the guy
raised up
who
an
was trying
army.
to marry her? Was he not there?
Here's the fun story about it is that I couldn't find another mention of him again. He probably gets taken... Wait for the next phase, and I think
Okay.
you'll understand what happens to him.
Okay.
So they raised an army back home of, people who are allied to them, peasants in the area, the normal raising an army type of stuff. Get a big army, go back to Iskorostan and finish them all off. As the story goes, on the way back there, they fought a battle with like some Derevlian soldiers or some of their allies and won handily. It got to Iskorostan and they started laying siege to the city, which was quite crippled, but they still managed to hold out for a year of siege, which is, honestly, you read some of these stories about sieges, a year of a siege is not really that long of a siege.
Depends who you ask.
Some sieges, like, if you look at them, some sieges take like 5 years, and you're like, what's even the point of any of this?
Ugh, is that even a siege? It's more of just
Yeah.
I got nothing. I had something. Lost it, so I'm sorry.
Keep workshopping it.
We're like, I think I'm going to go visit my sister in whatever other city. Dude, we can't. The siege. Oh, the siege. Oh my gosh, I forgot.
The siege.
The
I got siege from this year to 5 years from now.
After this year of sieging, Olga was like, okay, I'm fucking tired of this. It's been a year. And so she sent them a message that says, why do you persist in holding out? All your cities have surrendered to me and submitted to tribute, so that the inhabitants now cultivate their fields and their lands in peace. But you had rather die of hunger without submitting to tribute. The Drevlians were not convinced that she was done revenging her husband.
She can't be trusted at this point.
Yeah, they're like, you're kind
Fool
of on
me
a roaring
once.
rampage of revenge here.
Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Maybe
Can't
that's
get
one on
shamed again.
me again.
She said that the feast and everything before that was sufficient for her, and that all she wanted was tribute. She wanted to finish everything off, get back that tribute that she was owed. And she decided that the tribute that she was going to ask for was 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house.
That's it?
That's it. 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows, which, all things considered, I guess was a pretty small tribute, because they agreed to it pretty much immediately. Though, thinking about it, my mind reels with the logistics of it. Like, is there that many cages? Like, how does every house... I mean,
They probably shove them in a big cage.
Yeah, because, like, house sparrows are from this area. So, like, I guess they're called house sparrows because they lived in houses. So I guess every house just has some sparrows in it, just as kind of like, sometimes your house has a mouse in it. I guess that was just like sparrows, like
that's
the owls
wild.
in Futurama.
They're just infestated.
Yeah, there's just sparrows everywhere.
No ravens, though? Just sparrows and pigeons?
Well, I don't know if there probably were ravens around, but she wanted sparrows and pigeons.
I think May Chance, she's up to something.
I think you'd be right. They deliver all these birds outside the city to her group. And then they're like, okay, hold on. Let's count all these birds or whatever. Go away. They waited for nightfall. And at nightfall, she had her soldiers tie a piece of sulfur wrapped in cloth to the leg of each bird. And at nightfall, they lit the end of the cloth, which caused the cloth to smolder. Not a full fire, but a smolder. And then they released all of the birds. Now, the fun thing about sparrows and pigeons is that when it's nighttime, they'll go back to where they roost, which means that all of these birds with little smoldering fuses on their legs went back to the houses that they originally came from to roost. And then when the cloth reached the sulfur, it ignited, and every house in the city caught fire at the same time, making it impossible to stop the fire.
Holy crap.
So she essentially firebombed the city.
I'm taking notes right now.
I have
My
so
enemies.
many questions about the logistics of how that all worked. The birds didn't care about having a smoldering on fire thing tied to
They
their
may have flown
legs.
faster.
Yeah, honestly, like if you were a bird and you had a smoldering fire thing on your leg, what would you even do besides panic fly as fast as you could back home? Right?
I mean, I figured just like panic fly around, you know?
From my understanding of how it worked is that the cloth didn't really like fire as in like an open fire. It was more of like a little smolder. And so maybe the bird was like, hey, this is fucked up, but not like so fucked up that it would really affect their behavior that much.
Yeah, it was just like, I'm a bird and I'm going to fly.
The real problem here is that sulfur ignites. And so once the...
Yeah, part 2 of my question, did all those birds just blow up?
100%.
All those birds absolutely just blew up.
So sad.
Yeah, so this is, the avian cost of this story cannot be overstated. All these poor sparrows who lost their lives in the name of Olga's revenge. My
and
heart goes
all
out.
of the people just of the town that lived there that had no decision in whether or not they surrendered to the siege.
Yeah, so the whole city burned down. They couldn't stop the fire because every house was on fire at once, which is a pretty rough situation. Also, like it's the year 900, whatever, so it's not like they have like plumbing. Everyone who fled the city was either slaughtered or enslaved. And when it was all left, when the fire was all over, she left a small group of survivors, just enough people to send tribute. And so she went back to Kiev. So she went back to Kiev and ruled as regent until
napalm or something?
Until Sviatoslav was old enough to take over. And then even after he was old enough to take over, he did the whole thing where he went out campaigning, and so she ruled in his stead. By all accounts, she did a lot of good work. She reformed the tribute system so that the ruler could appoint people to do it instead of collecting it himself.
Far
So
safer.
that's kind of what started this whole thing. And she also set up trading posts and hunting grounds and boundary markers and stuff like that all around the empire that helped establish the state rule and unify the Rus people. And she had a steady stream of marriage proposals from all sorts of suitors, and she refused all of them because she wanted to keep Kievan Rus independent. It
Classic.
was very important to her to stay independent.
Just like
I
Queen
respect it.
Elizabeth I.
All the women who
but way
independent,
before.
blow your birds up here.
Yeah. At some point in the 950s, Olga traveled to Constantinople to meet with the Byzantine emperor, who was Constantine VII. The reason for this, like the exact reason why she went to Constantinople, it varies by the source, but it was probably some kind of diplomacy.
Did you say what was his name?
Constantine VII.
Constantine lived in Constantinople?
Well, yeah, it was named Constantinople after the first Constantine.
First Emperor Constantine. So like
The
it's
first
kind of like
Emperor
the Pope,
Constantine.
where like you get a new name when you become the ruler, and that name is Constantine.
And Constantinople is Istanbul now.
You can't go back. Constantinople.
So it was Byzantium, and then it was Constantinople, and now it's Istanbul.
The Byzantine Empire. Wild time. Crazy art. Look up Byzantine art. Wild.
So do you know about the Byzantine Empire? Do you know who the Byzantines were?
Dude, I never leave my basement.
It doesn't really
I never
matter.
leave Andrew's basement.
The Byzantine Empire was basically like
Hey, Bo.
an offshoot of the Roman Empire. It was like the eastern half of the Roman Empire split from the western half of the Roman Empire, and then the eastern Roman Empire.
Why'd she go to Constantinople?
It does. Okay. So she went to Constantinople, met with Constantine VII. He was immediately smitten with her. He was like, this girl
Just like,
is
"What's up,
beautiful.
girl?"
She is smart. She is
Everybody loved
wise. Everybody loved Olga.
She's a
By
bad
all
bitch.
accounts, she was
She's
a bad
very good at
bitch.
lighting fires.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great paintings of her, and she's very pretty in all of them. So I don't know if any of them were actually painted during her lifetime, or if everyone was just like, this girl sounds like she'd be pretty. But they're all really great.
She is really good at ruling. She is really good at getting revenge. And she has a really good sense of humor.
Yeah. And so he wanted to marry her because of her positive characteristics, and also because he wanted control over the Rus, because he's the emperor that's what emperors do. And so she was like, I don't want to marry a guy, but this guy's kind of all right. But also, how can I kind of spin this in a different way? So she agreed. So the thing about the Byzantine Empire is that it was all very Christian. Constantinople was
Boo.
Christian. And so she agreed that, if she was going to get married, she'd have to convert to Christianity because the Rus, they were all pagans. And so she agreed to being baptized, but she wanted Constantine to sponsor her baptism.
Sponsored by Coke.
And so after then she was baptized, and then she said, but Constantine, you sponsored my baptism. That makes you, my godfather. I can't marry my godfather. It would be incest.
You come here on the day of my daughter and I's wedding.
So
I think that's a good move. I feel like that's going to bite her in the ass.
No, I love it.
by
I
all
think it's
accounts, it
great.
didn't. I think it's pretty funny.
He's like, I did all this stuff for you, and now that sucks.
But the thing about Constantine is that he's so Christian that he's like, oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, pretty much. So she left Constantinople, went back to Kiev, and then by all accounts, she became a very devout Christian. She wasn't able to
Wait,
convert
she
her
became
son
a Christian
because,
anyway?
Yeah, she became a Christian. She became very good at being a Christian. She was trying to convert as many of the Rus as possible to Christianity at this point. She wasn't able to convert her son Sviatoslav, who thought that converting would make him seem weak to the people, especially because the Rus didn't really like Christians that much.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder
Agreed.
why.
Yeah, right. I wonder why. And so, but she was still doing the work and putting in the work to convert the whole place to Christianity. It did rub off, though, on her grandson, and her grandson became the first Rus leader to be a Christian and to adopt Christianity and to make Kievan Rus officially Christian. She eventually died of illness in 969, shortly after defending Kiev from a siege.
And that's as specific as
awesome.
we can be.
She died. Yeah, all the sources just say that she died of an illness. I don't know what kind of illness. It was the year 969, so they probably thought that her humors were out of whack or something. But even though Sviatoslav wasn't Christian, he did heed her request for a Christian funeral.
What a good son.
Because of the work that she put in to Christianize the Rus, she eventually was canonized in the 13th century, sometime in the 1200s, and officially became Saint Olga, the patron saint of widows and converts.
All right. And people who like revenge.
And her feast day is July 11th, which was the day that she died.
Well, I know what I'm doing next July 11th.
I'm going to find a city and burn it down.
I'm going to set someone on fire. No, I would
Wait.
never do that. I don't enjoy fire and I don't enjoy hurting animals. So I don't think that would be a good time.
That's how somebody who burned down an entire city was able to become a saint, because when you're baptized, all of your sins are washed away.
Oh man, she was so smart.
Mm-hmm.
She killed so many people.
She killed so many people
Yeah.
and then got into heaven anyway and is a saint.
Yeah, really knew how to game the system.
Okay, did she do the Christian thing just because she knew that it was going to forgive her in other people's eyes? Was this just all a ploy?
Probably not.
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
Because everything else up to this point has all been a ploy.
I don't think that it was a ploy. I mean, maybe initially it was a ploy to get Constantine to stop trying to marry her, but it seems like she really committed to the bit, to the point where there has to have been some sincerity to it.
That's why.
Otherwise, you just go home and be like, yeah, I'm Christian, but actually be pagan. Seems like she really cared about it. While she may have initially done it as a bit, eventually, the line between bit and reality can be blurred.
So it's like at the end of one of those movies where there's someone who's like a hitman or a murderer or something, and they have a group of hitmen with them, and then one of the guys is like, you know what, I'm gonna try this not being a hitman thing out, and they live in the woods for the rest of their lives.
For some reason, they always have to come back.
Yeah, and they find him later, and they're like, one more job. He's like, I've retired.
Her grandson comes to her and she's sitting there embroidering or something, and she looks up. What's the job?
Played by Jason Statham.
So early at the beginning of this, when I said that a lot of this was kind of like legend, that's because it comes from a small epilogue. It comes from a book or a chronicle, which is called the Russian Primary Chronicle, which is usually just called the Primary Chronicle, or the Tale of Bygone Years, which is a series, which is multiple sources that were compiled by an unknown monk in or near Kiev in the 1110s. And so this is a bunch of material that has been kind of put together. There's stuff that kind of Byzantine annals, Norse sagas, Greek religious texts, a bunch of treaties. The whoever it was who compiled it wrote down a lot of oral histories, things like that. A lot of the details are murky. A lot of the timelines are inconsistent, and some of the stories are kind of more legend than fact. But what can be verified is the broad strokes. Should we wait for Bo to get back?
Bo's pooping right now. I'm not going to cut this out.
Okay.
Bo, how long do you think you're going to be?
How big that poop?
Messaging from the toilet. Okay.
Is it? Oh,
Oh.
He said it's runny.
Oh. I don't know if I want this to be in the. I don't know if I want this to be in the podcast. There's very little left. I don't have very much left.
Just like Bo's poop. Make sure you wipe. He said no.
Oh, God. Bo, if you have anything interesting to say, because I assume you're wearing your headset in the toilet, which is funny to me, just type it and I'll read it out loud.
Just imagine someone pooping with a headset on.
It's just, wow. Okay, I didn't need this image in my mind. Sorry. Keep going. Take us away from this.
The broad strokes of this story are definitely true. Igor was killed by the Drevlians. Olga was pissed and led troops to conquer the city. And Bo just sent a selfie of himself with the headset on. And it was is he holding a bar of Irish Spring soda?
I am pretty sure that's a vape. Pretty sure that's a vape.
That's a vape.
He's vaping, pooping, and listening at the same time.
Multitasking. Hell yeah.
That's when he actually looks really comfortable.
Yeah. So the rest past this is maybe embellishment or legend. There's a sort of Christian propaganda element to it, right? They wanted to, I think that it was politically advantageous or theologically advantageous. I don't know what the right word is here, but to embellish her cruelty as a pagan to show how embracing Christianity made
Look at
her holy.
how crazy she was before she was a Christian, and then she died a nice Christian woman.
Yeah. So there is that aspect to it.
Because paganism makes you crazy.
But it was awesome.
But it's also fucking awesome. She burned all these people to death. She dumped a bunch of people in a pit and buried them alive and was sassy about it. I love it. And like, even if it is a legend, it's still 1,000-year-old legend. So it's still historically relevant in that this is a story that influenced people for 1,000 years. You know, people told stories about Olga. She was a saint, you know? This is like something that like people have made paintings of her. Like she's a major figure in, you know, Slavic history.
Pretty cool.
She's pretty cool. So the story still deserves to be told. And I think that we should all just assume that it's true because it makes the world a little more interesting.
I'm a big fan of her killing a bunch of birds. I don't like birds.
Damn.
I like that.
That is the part of the story that I like the least. This kind of did you ever hear about how the U.S. Army was planning on doing that with bats during World War II in Japan? Because like Tokyo was still mostly wood construction, and they were like, what we could do is get a bunch of bats and we'll put time bombs on them, like timed thermite charges on these bats, and then we'll let them loose, and then they'll go roost in all of the buildings, and then the thermite charges will ignite and will burn down all of Tokyo.
I'm pretty sure that's against the Geneva Conventions.
I think that this was before the Geneva Conventions.
Oh, no, yeah,
right?
I know that. But now thinking about it, that sounds bad.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. The Geneva Conventions.
They didn't, the Japanese didn't kill their husband with trees.
Well, I mean, they did do Pearl Harbor, though.
Okay, yeah. They didn't use trees, though.
How did that work? Like, why did they not do the bat bomb? I mean, probably because it's a horrendous thing to do.
Probably just didn't work.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Some scientist is just like, hear me out. Bats. What about, guns and bullets and bombs? Like, no. Bats.
Apparently, during one of the tests, the bats roosted not where they wanted them to. And then
that's what I was saying. And then you accidentally burned down your own stuff.
Yeah, burned down the air base. They also put all the bats in a bomb and then dropped the bomb from a plane. And then, like,
why?
What's the point?
In midair. It opened up in midair. And
you're
then
just
they all
killing
left
bats.
Yeah, at this point, you're just killing bats. You know what? I'm going to say it. We don't approve of killing bats on this podcast.
Speak
bats,
for yourself.
No. Birds, yes.
Anyway.
Bats are important.
Is that all you had about Olga of Kiev?
That's all I have about Olga of Kiev.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of this podcast about Olga of Kiev. That was a really badass lady. Thank you for telling us the tale. The favorite thing that I learned was that guy got ripped apart by birch trees. And I know that's grim, but I just didn't even fathom something like that could even be a thing that you do to someone. And now that I know it, I will never unknow it. Andrew, what was your favorite thing that you learned?
Birch trees was good. Unexpected, but good. Bird death, that's just brutal, but good. I liked it. I didn't like when she became Christian, but I honestly think it was a ploy. I think because she was doing the long con of no one can touch me now.
I mean, now she gets to be a saint. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, now I'm like, forever etched in history for two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Bo, what was your favorite thing that you learned while on the toilet?
Bird terrorism. I just not the bird.
When she asked for the birds.
Mm-hmm. And just causing whole terrorism. I like it.
Well, now that I think about it.
Causing a whole terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
She asked for 3 pigeons and 3 other ones. I forgot what it was.
Sparrows.
From each house. So that's a failsafe.
Yeah, right.
Because if she just asked for 1, she's like, no, I need 3 just in case like 2 of them don't make it.
It's smart. Yeah. She was a smart lady. She's crafty.
Crafty lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I mean, who even conceives, like, we're going to carry them in on their boat and then bury them alive? That's thinking outside the bun for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Taco Bell.
Zach, what was your favorite thing that you learned while researching this episode?
It's very much that old lady, that old Tyrell lady in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I want you
yeah,
to know it was
Olenna.
me. My favorite part of this is, I think, the burying the boat. I think that's great. I love the idea
'Cause
of just
boats
dumping a
don't go
boat full
there.
of people into a ditch. I think that's very fun. It's a very fun image, and the fact that
Okay.
she was sassy about it, I think really solidifies
And,
it
like,
for me.
imagine, okay, we're all in the boat, okay? We're all in the boat. Her people are carrying us in. Oh, that was a rough journey, and we're getting such pageantry on the way into this city.
Ooh.
Aha!
Hey, is that a big ass ditch over there? Is that maybe what's that big ditch for? Hey, Olga? Hey, Olga?
That's
Oh,
okay.
what's that
I gotta
ditch
say,
for?
if I'm part of a crew who just murdered this lady's husband, and she's like, okay, you just came by boat, I'm gonna take your boat now. I'd be like, no, I don't like this.
Boats live in the river.
Boats live in the river. Why can't I just walk into town? This makes no sense.
You don't get it. You don't understand the complexity of it at all. So just don't worry
That's
about
like
it. Okay?
you go to your friend's house and they're like, cool, now we're going to drive your car into the house. No, you're not going to drive your car. We're going to put it in neutral and we're going to push your car into the house. Like, why would you do that?
Also, I got you this giant horse. Anyway, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Is the Trojan horse? Is you gave it's a trick also. Anyway, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast.
Did you just say that the Trojan horse was gay?
No?
What were they doing in that horse?
I mean, they were Greek, right?
Wearing condoms, obviously.
Yeah, they're being safe.
Big ones for a horse. What was I even saying? Oh, if you like
I
this
have no
episode.
idea.
Right, yeah. I was trying to take us out of
Something about a
this
horse condom.
before the words horse condom were said, but obviously it failed. All right, have a good night. Folks, if you like to listen to this, you want to listen to other ones, follow us on the socials and stuff. Call to action, insert here, and have a great day wherever you are, or a great evening, or a great morning. I don't know your life. Okay, bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
See you in
Bye.
a few weeks.
Bye. Bye. Good.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Bo and Andrew didn't go to college because that's just the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast.
Remember to kill your birds with explosives.
Don't kill birds. Oh my, geez, Louise.
Caw.